is the 911 Calls Podcast with the operator.
I have not been able to locate her for 24 hours. And I've called all her friends.
Welcome, Jess, to the show.
Hello.
On the Uncut, we were talking about what we would do to contribute to our communities if we had to. If we had to. Not if we wanted to or could, but had to. And
or court ordered.
Yeah, court ordered. That came up. But it sounds like you're pretty active in your community, and that's cool. And then on top of that, you talked about creating a farmer's market of sorts that's accessible to all. And then I ruined it with my ideas, as I do. And then you laughed at my idea of helping old people with their cables and disconnected devices in their houses. And I don't think you're wrong. You said that it was a bit of an ego trip for me to go in and fix those things for other people and be the one that like saved the day. And I'm thinking about that now, and I'm like, maybe I need to choose something where I have less. It's not my skills as much as maybe just my time. And no one knows that I packed the can of beans at the cannery. So maybe I just need to do more of that, not be a cable superhero for grandmas.
And get a free lunch.
That was a fun Uncut, though. Free cookies.
Yeah, that sums up about the 45 minutes into one.
Yeah. My effort in contributing to the community is how do I get extra food from the process? Yeah. I did have a business partner one time. He was head of sales. This is interesting. What's interesting to me, he was head of sales for our business. And we realized at one point that his whole effort in life, he was okay at sales, and he wasn't really great at closing, but he was really good at talking to people off the front. And what we figured out about him was his motivator in life was to have every single day's lunch scheduled for somebody else to pay for it for him. That was his motivation. And we're like, hey, if it brings in business, I guess, let him cook. But, and it was just a brass ring when a client would invite him to a dinner, it was like all food related. Like everything he did was like motivated by, booking out his lunches. It was pretty funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then he died.
Oh.
Heart attack. So what can you do?
Did he really?
Yeah, he did. He had a bundle of nerves in his heart. Then it went weird, and it was really wild. He had this bundle of nerves that was connected to his heart, and we'd be sitting in a meeting, and he would just go wide as a sheet, and it would twitch. Like the bundle of nerves would twitch and mess up his heart rhythm. And so he would just almost pass out at the table. And finally he went to the doctor, and they found out that it was what it was. And they're like, it's not treatable though, because it's connected to his heart.
That's really sad, but all the food probably didn't help either.
Yeah, all those lunches. I like to blame it on the lunches, but Tochazine, as my mom would say. Well, I'm going to get right into this. So today we are going to, I don't think we've ever been here for a call before, but Wichita, Kansas, actually, is where we're going. And that's sort of in your neck of the woods, isn't it, Jess? Is Kansas near you? I don't know my geography.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's the state over.
Have you ever been to Wichita?
I've never been to the state of Kansas.
Oh, really?
There's not much there.
Yep.
Kansas City is on the border, and it shares, some of it is in Kansas, some of it's in Kansas City.
I was going to say, isn't there a Kansas City, Missouri?
Yes, and a Kansas City, Kansas.
Right. That's weird to me. Also, that Kentucky's International Airport is in Ohio.
Ohio.
Is weird to me. Yeah, things get weird down there in the South, so.
That's the Midwest, but okay.
Midwest.
Kansas is in the smack dab middle. I think there's isn't there a military base there?
Yes.
In Wichita?
Wichita Airplane Academy, I think is what they call it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I know not a lot of people go to Kansas, I think because, well, if we're honest, Wizard of Oz ruined it for everybody. Nobody wants to, everybody's afraid that there's just tornadoes everywhere. For the same reason nobody comes to Idaho, because they feel like we're all just like, we walk around with our AR-15s around our neck. They don't go to Kansas because they feel like it's always just tornadoes. I think that's the main reason. Last time I looked into it, that's why no one goes to Kansas anymore, is tornadoes.
Yeah, they have a lot of tornadoes. It's very flat there.
Yep. That's sad. But we're there today for a call.
Anyway.
And I don't know if you knew this, but Wichita has as most places do in the United States, they have their own rich heritage. And to your point, they are deeply rooted in aviation industry. They're actually known as the air capital of the world. Wichita is the largest city in Kansas, and it's got it's a melting pot of diversity. All shades of white are there, including shades of other skin colors that range from like a kind of a like an Irish white all the way down to your.
Anyway,
there is a lot of cultural diversity down there and a lot of historical significance. In 2015, Wichita was not only the scene of a tragic crime, though, but also a locale where significant events unfolded. So we're in 2015, Wichita, Kansas. A couple things that were happening at that time. There was a significant, believe it or not, a significant weather event in the April of 2015. Wichita experienced a severe straight line wind event with wind speeds reaching around 100 miles an hour.
That's like an F5, 4?
I don't know. Do they use Fs for wind, or is that tornadoes only? I don't know.
Oh, I mean, if the wind is going that fast, then was it not in a cyclone?
It wasn't, apparently. It was they called it a straight.
Why am I asking you questions about this? Oh my gosh. Go ahead.
Well, they call it a straight line wind event. And I don't know if that, if you know, let us know in the comments. If you're still here after my comments about skin color.
I don't know why I fed into that. Okay.
Let us know in the comments about straight line wind events. It really wreaked havoc on Newton and northern Wichita, though. There was a student who was recognized by the Kansas State University's College of Business Administration as the Spring's Outstanding Senior, spotlighting the city's educational achievements in the vibrant academic community. And I thought I was given 10 things that had happened in Wichita, Kansas in 2015. And those were the two that I thought stood out from the rest. They had an Outstanding Senior Business Award for a kid and a wind event. Yeah, thumbs up. There has to be more things happening in Wichita. So if you live in Wichita, find us on social media and tell us more about your city. Here's a couple things that a lot of people don't know about Wichita. The word Wichita comes from the Wichita Native American tribe, and the name is derived what they believe to mean scattered lodges or painted faces. Those don't really line up, so I think that's why it says the name is believed to mean, because those are really different. Scattered lodges and painted faces, not even close to each other. They were really big into candle in the late 19th century. Moving forward, though, there was, like I said, they're the air capital of the world. They became the birthplace of major aviation companies like Beechcraft, Cessna, and Stearman Aircraft in the earliest 20th century. They've got quite a rich cultural scene. I've thought about during this part of the show, rather than talking about these cities, I've always thought it'd be cool if I could just have the mayor of that city on to talk about these things. Give them 3 minutes What's the elevator pitch for Wichita? And let them just cook. Let them cook for 3 minutes, and then cut them off and then hang up on them. I thought, maybe we'll start doing that. Maybe the mayor of another show will just end up becoming the host of this show. It could be done much better. Anyway, today we've got a couple characters, not really characters, one victim, one perp.
Okay.
Starts with a gal named Tanya Tandock. They always talk about, people whose face lights up a room or their smile, they remember their smile. Well, in Tanya's case, she actually was a pillar of contribution to the city of Wichita. She was the vibrant owner and celebrated chef of Tanya's Soup Kitchen, known for her culinary expertise and also deep involvement in the community. And then we got Curtis Mitchell, a 47-year-old local musician and alcoholic. So, just two peas in a pod here. So, Tanya's restaurant was more than just a place to eat, though. It was a gathering spot where everyone felt welcome. Curtis Mitchell, on the other hand, was a musician with deep ties to the local music scene, but he faced a lot of personal struggles, like I mentioned, alcohol and other issues that he had. The exact start date of the dynamic between Tanya and Curtis isn't really known, but they were known to have a personal and a professional association, with Tanya's being a celebrated local chef and Mitchell being a musician. Their paths crossed due to their involvement in local arts and culinary scenes. The relationship was multifaceted. There was a friendship between them. There was also a certain modicum level of professional respect. She was very generous, and Mitchell was a musician. So she, as would happen in this kind of a situation, she offered Mitchell a place to stay in her home. So this showed that their relationship had to have been to a certain level. She had a soup kitchen. I mean,
right.
The number of people, the candidates she had for staying in her home were probably myriad. Yet Mitchell's the one that gets the invite. So level of trust, camaraderie maybe between the two of them. At some point before the incident that we're going to cover today, Mitchell began living in Tanya's home. It was initially born out of Tanya's kindness. She saw a friend in need. He needed a place. So enter Mitchell into her home. Leading to the event, there was a strain on their relationship and a strain on the living situation. She had expressed a desire just before the event for Mitchell to move out of her home. And so the relationship had deteriorated to a certain degree. A human like that runs a soup kitchen, invites you into her home. Things had to have gotten pretty rough for her to say, yeah, no.
I'll say she has to have some sort of rules and standards if she's letting people into her home on the regular.
Yeah.
It can't be a free for all. So
right. Well, we talked a little bit about that during the Uncut. We were talking about volunteer charity work and, using our time and resources for the betterment of others. That one of the hardest things that you can do when you're doing that is identify where your boundaries are.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can be a challenge. It can be a challenge, especially if you see that the need is kind of never ending and evergreen, Yeah. Well, in this case, June 3rd, 2015 was early evening. Tanya and Curtis Mitchell are both at her home, and the specifics of the interaction are a bit unclear, but there was a lot of tension between them in the home. Later in the evening, the situation escalates, and there's an intense confrontation between the two of them. And there's a bit of a gap in the timeline here. So things start simmering early evening. By late evening, things have started to boil over, and then the timeline goes dark until she doesn't appear for work the next day. raises concerns with her friends and her colleagues. And she's got this dedication to her restaurant. She just doesn't not come into work like I would, you know. This causes a problem. So one of her friends calls 911. And that is where we will begin today's first call. Are you ready for me to press resume on the audio file?
I'm ready. Never been more ready.
Never been more ready. Okay, here we go.
Is it coming 911? What city is your emergency?
Wichita, Kansas.
What's location?
I have a friend, and I have not been able to locate her for 24 hours. And I've called all her friends, and we've all conferred together, and we would like maybe somebody to go by her house and maybe look through the whole house and see what's going on over there.
Do you know her address?
Yes, it was Tanya Tandock. We're all very worried about her, and we cannot. Nope, she hasn't been communicating with any of us. I think.
Spoken to her or seen her in the last 24 hours?
Right. She left my house last night at about 10 after 9, and she texted me that she was home at 20 after 9, and she was supposed to call me after that, and she did not. And
Spell her first name.
T-A-N-Y. A.
Spell her last name.
T-A-N-D-O-C.
She was one Hispanic or Asian.
She is half Filipino, half Jewish, so I guess Filipino. She's tan colored.
How old is she?
She's 45.
How tall?
Oh, 5'6".
She said medium or heavy?
Medium.
And last time she what she wearing?
A skirt, some shorts under it, and kind of, I believe it was kind of a white, maybe grayish top.
What kind of vehicle does she have?
She has a little black Honda. I'm not sure exactly what it is.
You know the tag number?
No, I do not.
Who does she live with?
She has a housemate. So she is currently asked to move out, and he's been very abusive and hateful towards her.
Okay. Is he abusive or like verbally?
Verbally.
And is he really romantically involved, or was he just a
No, he was just a housemate. And I think he's very pissed off that he has to leave. From what I've gathered from talking to Tanya, she and I are romantically involved. And
what is the romance name?
I know his first name is Kurt, and he's probably at the residence at this time.
His wife like Spanish or Asian?
I believe he's white. I'm not real sure, but I think he has a beard, and I actually know the description of it. I still have it. Let me see if I can find it. I don't believe I do have it anymore. But, like I said, I would, if you guys could check it out, when you look in the basement, because her friends went over there, like I think 3 of the female friends, and they were scared to look in the basement, which is his part of the house.
When did they check over there?
That was today. I don't know what time it was earlier today.
She wasn't there?
She wasn't there, and her car was not there, and her car hasn't been there all day. And another thing, her best friend, I just got off the phone with her, and she said that I should be the one to call you guys, because I know for a fact that I know that I saw her last, and her housemate told them this morning that he saw her before he left for work. And I don't know if that's true or not, but she hasn't been seen since I last saw her my roommate and I were here, and he saw her leave here, and then she texted me, like I said, 10 minutes later saying she was home, and she was supposed to call me shortly thereafter, and that did not happen. So I texted her at that point, and I did not, and I've texted her all day. I've called her. Her friends have called her. Her business, she owns her own business. They've called her. Everybody's trying to find her, and nobody can find her, and we're all a mess.
Another information you're getting rid of the residence, sir. Please go ahead and put in on the contact you by phone so that you will want to speak with them.
Yes, absolutely.
Call your phone is going to show up as private blocker and now, so make sure you answer that. Now back to her roommate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how old do you think he is?
I would guess he's a similar age to us, probably 45, I would say, maybe, give or take a few years. I don't know.
That's just somewhere in 40, though.
Yeah, that would be my best guess.
How tall?
I've never met this man. She said he's big and burly. I think he has a beard.
Do you know if he has a vehicle?
He has a broken down vehicle in front of the house, and I don't think he drives. I drove by there today a few times to see if her vehicle was there, and it wasn't. And I believe I saw a motorcycle parked inside the fence by the garage. I think it was a motorcycle. I can't confirm that, but there is I think it's a blue Ford Festiva with the back window broken out in front of the house. Tanya told me there's a pile of crap that can't get going. So, and if they need to come here and see me, great. I'm worried. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'm sure that they've actually checked on things out at her address. I'm going to let you go, but they will contact you, okay?
Thank you very much.
No problem. If anything changes, you get any additional information, give us a call back.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, just to, I probably should have said something before the call. The sound quality was garbage. And what you heard is the garbage audio after putting in a bunch of time to try to clean up the audio. I had a speak and spell and a Teddy Ruxpin in the 1980s that sounded better than the audio from that call from 25th freaking teen. I mean, what? The last time I listened to audio where the dead air between dialogue sounded that bad was when I was watching live footage from Afghanistan while we bombed the daylights out of the place after 9/11. Like, the live feed sounded better than that call. So I'm going to continue to complain about it for a second so that everybody knows it's not my fault, but I also am disappointed, if I'm being honest, in AI, because I thought AI would do a better job fixing that audio, but it didn't, and it let me down. So,
I mean,
we all feel left down. Anyways, we should move on. Is that what you were about to say?
I could understand the gist of it, I guess. Understood that.
Well, I'm gonna give a little bit of a primer on what you heard. It's really not a primer anymore because we already listened to it. It's a translation.
Is this the only call?
No. There's one other call that we're gonna get into. But first, the translation right after these ads. Tricked you again. Bam, gotcha. Got to pay the bills, Jess. It's funny because I haven't played the ads yet, but it's funny because I said ads, and I feel like people can see your face through their headphones when I say that. I feel like people know exactly what your face is doing when I do that, and I think that says a lot about your face. So
I was born this way, so I'll tell you.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's ads time. Here's the ads. Okay, we're back. I was saying a prayer while we were gone. Used that silence for just a moment of self-introspection, and I just wanted to apologize. Hopefully Chase edited out my skin color comments from earlier well enough, but not so much that it's a surprise when I just brought it up again. So Chase, there's the challenge for you.
Yeah.
Ugh.
really like to make his job hard.
Somebody else do this show. All right. So that call, what we heard was a mess, but it was a friend, an associate of hers, who had conferred with other friends and associates, and I'm sorry, I just got distracted by Luther's comment in the back door. I like how racist you are when I'm not on. He just joined. Luther, just to explain, I was talking about what a melting pot Wichita, Kansas was from a skin color standpoint. Like, it's all the colors of skin. You know, and I was trying to make a beautiful point, but it came across like I was maybe, I don't know, the grand dragon of the KKK. So moving on. So what you heard there was probably the elected associate to make the call, because he and others were concerned because Tanya hadn't shown up to her own restaurant. You also heard a little bit on there of him informing the dispatcher that there was another person living in her home, and that was Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
So and then, you know, he was trying to give a description. You get a little bit of a picture. He didn't think Mitchell drove, you know, so a lot of things were kind of laid out there. A lot of obviously assumptions because he's not there. He doesn't know what's going on. So just to rewind, late night, things got hot on June 3rd, 2015. Mitchell attacks Tanya in what would later be described as a brutal assault. The exact sequence of these actions is not necessarily recorded. We don't have that detail, but the outcome was tragically clear. So there's a bit of that gap in the timeline. That's what happened in that time, was he assaulted her. And June 4th, 2015, in the morning, she doesn't appear for work, raises concerns with friends and colleagues. They call 911. June 4th, 2015, late evening, so later that night, around 11 p.m., after receiving calls from concerned friends, Wichita police are dispatched to her home to perform a welfare check. Upon arriving, police make initial contact with Mitchell, who at first he suggested that Tanya is not at home and possibly she's out of town. Well, the police leave because they're not able to determine any evidence of a crime or a situation where they can investigate further. She's an adult. No one really knows what's gone on. The only reason I told you about the assault was because I know the future past and you don't yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to tell you to try to inform you that that's what happened, but nobody else at this point knew that. So they leave. If you're Mitchell, let me ask you this, Jess, as you know, tap into your criminal mind here. You've assaulted a woman. She doesn't show up to work. The police come. You play it so chill that they're like, okay, well, guess we'll go back to Dunkin' Donuts, and they piss off. And what are your thoughts? Like, what are you thinking as the criminal at that point?
That you got away with it, I guess. I don't know.
Right?
But I'm really confused on why they left. They showed up to do this welfare check after the friend made the phone call, right?
I agree, because they got the first 911 call in the morning. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say that on things like this, there are a couple timers that kick off. A welfare check might not have been prioritized because this is an adult woman. All they're going on is we haven't seen her. It's kind of uncustomary, and nobody could reach out to her or whatever. So for the police, they're like, I don't know. People don't like to hear it. They got resources, you know, or not. And so they have to, but I'm sure a preponderance of calls to the police then compelled the visit for a welfare check later that evening.
Oh, okay.
So it many people had called. And so I think that's what tipped it, was like, okay, we gotta go do a welfare check. Still, their hands are tied. There's no evidence or anything yet, right?
I didn't think it took that much to get a welfare check, you know?
Yeah, we're a bit worrisome. bit worrisome. I mean, especially for a town that has such a rich history in aviation, you would think that they'd want to keep that reputation and not tarnish it with something as trivial as not doing welfare checks fast. But I don't know. I digress. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm feeling like I just won the lottery. And the next thing on my mind would be get out of town.
Yeah.
Bug out, let's get out of here.
Run. Is this person in their right mind, though?
He is. I'll go ahead and I'll foreshadow it a bit and let you know he is in his right mind. Did someone just deliver you a drink from the door? How did you get that?
You might need to edit that thank you out. Sorry.
What was it? What did they hand you?
Adam got home and brought me a beverage.
It's a White Claw, isn't it?
No, this is a Fresca.
Chase is like a dromedary camel. He drinks like a gallon of iced tea in a sitting watching us.
And doesn't go to the bathroom.
No, never. He has a bladder the size of like the Exxon Valdez. It's amazing. So.
Oh, I'm glad.
Oh, see? Oh, what did he say?
I went poop.
Yay! Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I love your kid.
Yay, we're officially pooping in the potty, guys.
Yay.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, life is happening around us. And we've been here a while, so I need to
take that out of the cut version, though.
I think that was cute. That was adorable.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'll get some energy.
Here, you drink your beverage, and I'm going to play the next 911 call because the question is, what did were the friends still suspicious? Did Mitchell bug out like I would have recommended? Here's what happened. Here we go.
Hi, my name's Kurt Mitchell, and I'm at South Minneapolis? Yes, South Minneapolis. You just had some officers come by, and they were looking for a missing person. Okay. And they probably need to get back over here because I have murdered her. I'm sorry, you've done what? I've killed her. Okay. I'm going to go out and sit on the porch, and I think they're probably in close proximity. I have no weapons. I intend no harm to anyone. It didn't happen last night. It was kind of a crime of passion. Who is this girl? Her name is Tanya Tandoff. How do you know her? We were roommates for a short time. Involved. Okay, hang on 1 second for me, okay? Yeah.
Okay. Is that how you thought things would go?
I have no idea what he said.
Okay, let me recount it for you. So the cops come, the cops go. Curtis Mitchell is like, I got a call. He calls 911. He says, hey, so the cops were just here. They were looking for a missing person. They need to come back because I murdered her.
Oh.
I killed her. And the dispatcher's like,
what?
Okay. Yeah. So he called. On the call, he claimed that it was, he said he could chalk it up as a crime of passion, but that he killed her. He killed her and he said the cops are probably in close proximity, so if you can just have them come back, I'm going to go sit out on the porch and I'm not armed.
So he had a change of heart then?
I guess so. Like it's like a telltale heart level kind of change of heart because he was free and clear at least right then. He could have bought himself time. I don't know why I'm translating it this way. Like, why do I keep going to, geez, dude? But yeah, I think it's because it doesn't ever happen. Nobody ever does this. The cops come looking and they're like, you should have asked me what's under the bed. You didn't. So I gotta call and let you know. It never happens. Never happens. So it did. So shortly after police arrived, Curtis Mitchell calls 911 inside the residence, claiming responsibility for Tanya's death and urging officers to return. So the police come back and discover Tanya's body in the basement, and she had suffered fatal blunt force trauma. Curtis Mitchell is arrested on site and taken into police custody without further incident. The aftermath of this is what's just...
First of all, the first call mentioned, the guy mentioned you need to check in the basement.
Oh, I didn't pick that up.
Was that a friend? Or was that...
Well, the friend, okay, I think the part you're talking about is the friend was talking about her place saying, I don't know if he's there or not, but you telling them where to check.
There is a basement. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that must be where he was living.
Oh, okay. That would make, if he was, okay. It just seemed coincident. I'm like, are we sure that it was a friend that called, the first time? But I'm not the investigator.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too. I had to listen to the calls again to see, is that the same voice twice? But it wasn't. It was definitely a friend. But you're onto something, because they knew that he was living in the house, but may not be completely visible unless they went digging.
Mm-hmm.
Which also is interesting, because had they gone to the house and Curtis Mitchell hadn't answered the door, they might not have gone in. I mean, they've got to have probable cause to bust in a door, or look in. There are caveats to that, but for the most part, they could have come and gone had he not answered the door.
Right.
So they found her in the basement. She had suffered fatal blunt force trauma. He was arrested on site, taken into police custody. No incident, no struggle. After this, it led Curtis Mitchell to go through a series of legal proceedings. He was convicted and sentenced. Here's the timeline of how that went. So June 5th, Curtis Mitchell is formally charged with the murder of Tanya Tandock. The charge laid against him was first-degree murder, reflecting the premeditated nature of the crime. June 2015, Mitchell makes his initial appearance in Sedgwick County Court. During this preliminary hearing, the judge informs him of the charges and advises him to secure legal representation. June 16th, 2015, in a surprising move, Curtis Mitchell pled guilty to first-degree murder. Sedgwick County District Court. Opting to forego trial, Mitchell's plea was direct acknowledgement of his actions and their consequences, he said. July 23rd, so we fast forward a month and some days, sentencing hearing for Curtis Mitchell takes place. And given the severity of the crime and Mitchell's guilty plea, the courts sentence him to life in prison. The court ordered Mitchell to serve a hard 50, as they call it, sentence, meaning he will not be eligible for parole until he has served at least 50 years of his life sentence. So this ruling is quite significant, as it reflects the seriousness of the crime and how the court viewed the crime and its impact on the community and to the victim's family. Following his sentence, Curtis Mitchell was transferred to a state correctional facility to begin serving his life sentence. And that concluded the legal proceedings, and that then it was just left up to the community to mourn. Interesting that her soup kitchen and her impact on the community was such that it was 9 days later that they reopened the soup kitchen. It had closed upon discovery of what had happened, and it was reopened. Mm-hmm. And then a short while later, it was purchased and reopened under new ownership. And in the time frame between it shutting down the first time and it being reopened, the community had quite a poignant set of things happen to celebrate her life and her contribution. She was a component of a music festival that took place in the following year, and the new owners recognized her contributions to the community in reopening it.
That's awesome.
The soup kitchen. Yeah.
someone kept it going for her because
Yeah.
she clearly wasn't ready to stop. That's tragic.
Yep. When we were talking on the Uncut, we were just talking about contributing to our communities and whatnot. And it's kind of hard to admit that if I were to die today, my community wouldn't even really know I existed. And that's not I'm not saying that from a place of ego as much as I feel like that's how little I've contributed to the place where I live.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, oh no, we have a community, an online, the 1159 community and everything.
Not your direct community. You're not giving back enough.
Yeah, not the mean streets of my little town, And I'm thinking about that now. Thinking about that. Anyway, I don't know if we mentioned it, but if you're looking for opportunities to serve in your own little community and find ways to contribute, check out justserve.org. You can put in your address or even your zip code, and massive number of results will come up of places where you can contribute your time and energy, or even from the comfort of your own home. Some of the things that they need done are done by people just sitting at home and using their skills and talents to accentuate the needs of those around, so you can serve the underserved. JustServe.org. How about a happy ending?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
I have a question for you ahead of the happy ending.
Uh-oh.
What is something that you misplace the most?
My vape.
Really? You lose it a lot?
Oh, anybody that vapes can strongly agree. My husband's like, what are you looking for? I'm like, oh, nothing, because I don't want to tell him that's what I'm looking for, because I lose it that often.
Have you ever had, I imagine, I grew up with friends, and there were the instances where they said that, oh, I snuck a drink of my dad's beer last night. Do you think do your kids stay away from the vape, or has it ever happened where they get a hold of it?
Oh, no, they know not to touch it, but if my kid would find it, he immediately is just like, hey, Mom, and hands it to me.
Ah, okay.
That's I'm ashamed of that, but no, I'm pretty careful. Well, there's been times, but I'd like to say I'm a responsible user and keep it out of reach from them.
Yeah. I don't vape or anything like that, but one thing I realized the other day is how predictable my schedule is, and how I know it's so predictable, but I don't do anything to adjust it so that I'm less embarrassed. Because, for example, every time Sam comes home from working at the burger place, when he comes home, it's in the window where if I'm gonna play Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, it's during that window. But there's nothing that hurts my heart more is when I'm playing Zelda and he comes up the stairs like, oh, I knew I'd find you here. I knew I'd find you right there playing that. You're always playing that.
Yeah.
And it's just funny how my life has very predictable patterns, so.
Same. Yeah, same here. My kid, if they're looking for me, they're like, were you outside? I was like, yeah, sorry. But I've also had conversations with them that I deserve
some you time,
my time as well. Yeah, because I'm helping them with everything in their life. So.
Right. Yeah. No.
Yeah, I'm gardening outside.
Quote unquote gardening. Yeah.
I knew I grew up later. I figured out what they were talking about, but had some friends' parents that would always say they were going for a walk.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds very innocent, but now I know that they were getting high on their walk, smoking a joint.
It's interesting when you get older and you realize the times in your life when things were going down, but you didn't know it. My wife talks about how there was this long lane away from their house, and there was a bench or, a place to sit. I think it was near a pond even. And every once she's like, yeah, sometimes my mom walks down that lane and sits at the pond. And come to find out, that's what her mom did whenever her and her husband were throwing down. And
Yes.
but that's how quiet they were about their arguments in front of their kids. It was like they didn't argue in front of the kids. She just took time, and so she makes the Green Mile walk to the pond. Probably thinking about drowning herself.
Yep.
And her kids just thought it was just this picturesque scene of mom down there sitting at the pond.
Becky's mom did a lot of laundry. We weren't allowed to come down to the laundry room. And as we got older, we're like, oh, okay,
laundry.
that makes sense. Yeah.
I'd like to say my mom was quiet in those moments. She wasn't. My mom's a pretty dynamic individual. We knew when she was leaving, like, especially if there had been a problem, like if we had pushed her too far, she's like, I'm out of here. Like we just see brake lights disappearing. It happened like once every 5 years or 10 years, but
right.
It had happened and we're like, okay, we need to clean the house. Everybody clean the house,
Yeah. And you got your stuff together because mom made a point. And I don't know, talking to your mom makes me feel, because my mom is always seems put together and never really let me into like those pieces of struggle. And I tried to be opposite with my kids and like just kind of be upfront, like, hey, I need a minute, or this is what's going on. And your mom is very inspiring when it comes to that, because I feel like she was always very real with her children. And it was okay. It was okay to drive away sometimes. This has been longer than it needs to. Do we have a happy ending? Sorry.
In her own way, like we've talked about it before. Sometimes a grain of vulnerability is healthy, I think, for our kids to see, that they don't think that we're, completely right all the time, and that there are nuances to our stresses or why we treated a situation a certain way. And my mom and I were notorious for fighting each other, arguing, and they'd go on forever. And they'd only end after we were just tired of talking, of arguing. And that's, and most often she was right. No, not most often. She was right all the time. But the arguments would go so long because she would also have other stresses in her life that me being an idiot didn't notice. And so I'm just, needling this poor woman with my issues. And afterwards, she'd be like, I'm sorry that it got that far. I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. And in my child brain, I'm like, I wish I'd known that. And often I probably said, well, if I'd known that, I would have, but no, we're stupid when we're kids.
Yeah, and, exactly.
Well, here's a happy ending for you. This is the only reason this one is a happy ending. I'm going to tell you ahead of time, is because of the outcome. It is a out of control train that barely fits in the happy ending category, but I'm using it. So here's the backstory. We were just talking about things we misplaced, so that's the context. So a man called 911 asking for help after he realized he left his 1-year-old baby in the back of his SUV after parking it at a North Quincy station in Massachusetts, and then jumped on the train and headed into town for work.
What?
I usually hide the ball on what's going on, but it can be a little bit hard to hear because he's on a moving train and it was affecting the cell phone. Also, it's a stress ride. But I wanted you to know that ahead of time because he was on his way back to the station on a train. Like, you get on a train, there's nowhere to go. You're stuck until it stops. So he had taken the train. First stop it made, he got off and got back on another train heading back to Quincy Station, North Quincy Station. And he made the call at that point because he needed officers. If they got there first, he was trying to be as responsible as possible in a situation that you hope never happens. And that's all I'll say. That's the whole story. But now we'll listen to the call so you can see how it plays out. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right, here we go.
Please record his line, Maury.
Hi, my name is, and I left by accident my toddler and my SUV at North Quincy Station.
You left what?
My little baby.
I can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me?
You're fading out
Can you hear me now?
a little bit.
I'm sorry, I'm on the screen.
That's okay.
I left my 1-year-old baby in my SUV by accident this morning at North Quincy Station. I'm on my way back to the station now.
What kind of car is it?
The black Saturn View.
Yeah?
And it's parked in the McDonald's side of the North Quincy lot.
North Quincy lot where?
Near the McDonald's side of the lot, about the third row from the place where you come for your ticket.
All right, stand by. Stay on the line with me. Do not hang up.
Hello.
777 and 778. Started to the North Quincy police station in the lot by the McDonald's side. And the gentleman on the phone, he's on the train. He left his 1-year-old baby inside a black Saturn View. All right, how far out are you?
I'm at Charles Engineering Station on my way back.
You're where?
Charles Engineering Station on my way back.
Charles?
Charles.
Okay, we have help on the way there.
Yeah, I probably dropped her off about 8:15.
You what?
I probably left the police station about 8:45.
Okay, we got help on the way there.
Okay, I'll meet them there as soon as I can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh. This is one of those situations where, as a parent, it's the worst thing that you could possibly imagine ever having happen. It's your biggest nightmare. And also the hurdle of knowing you've got to call the police and hopefully have them assist, in making sure that your mistake isn't a massive tragedy.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill to swallow. You screw up like you never want to screw up, and then you got to ask for help in a very public way. If I were this guy, I'd also be sweating the fact that you never know how the radio scanners and everything, the news could be there when you show up. So this was a deal. Anyway, Quincy police, MTBA police, and EMTs responded to the scene and found the baby safe in the car.
Oh, thank goodness. I mean, I know you already told us that, but still.
Yeah. Baby had been 1-year-old girl, been inside the car, just sleeping away, being peaceful, which was part of the problem, I guess, from the beginning. Is she just was there. She just wasn't there. She was just being quiet.
Yeah.
She'd only been in there for about 35 minutes only. It was the best of a worst case situation. The father, who wished to remain anonymous, said in a statement that today was one of the worst days of his life and that he felt fortunate it was a, quote, mild temperature day, which, yeah, you're thinking your lucky stars that what had happened was the baby had fallen asleep in the child seat and I went into autopilot, he wrote. I had what I thought was a safeguard procedure against this in place and I neglected to use it that day. Obviously, we will be doing more to prevent this situation going forward. He added that knowing too much time had already elapsed, he called police to ensure his daughter's safety. He went on to say, I'd like to thank the Quincy and Transit police departments as well as the responding EMTs for taking good care of my little one while I rushed back. He wrote, she is safe and happy today. And oof.
I mean, he made the right choice by calling for help because the alternative, if you show up and something bad has happened, then there's a whole nother list of questions to ask,
Yeah.
Like he made the right choice. And that takes a lot because like you said, you're ashamed, like, oh, I made this horrible decision, but at least call to get some help. Maybe they can get there faster. So
Right.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah, just all of it. And then also the aggravation of being on a train, like completely helpless,
Mhm.
you know, and then trains don't help with phone signals. So that's another thing. So I'm just glad it worked out. Very glad it worked out. Well, that's all for this episode. Give a couple shout outs here. Thanks to everybody that's accessed our back door during this episode. It's been a lively chat. It's always interesting to see the way the chats go. You know, what racist comments set you off the most? We get to see it in real time. So you get to hear the things that don't get edited out too, and that's fun. If you want to hear that stuff and you can't seem to get enough of this dumpster fire, check us out, patreon.com/1159media or 1159plus.com, where you can access our back door. Every episode, we send out live alerts right before we start recording, and seats fill up quick. Seats fill up real quick. It's like a monster truck show at times. It's just super busy, super full. A couple shout outs. Want to thank Sam for writing, research, and development of this episode. I want to thank Sam for the ham-fisted job of cleaning up the audio for this episode. It was not good at all, and he needs to work on that, otherwise he's going to lose his job. I wanted to thank Jess for being the fearless co-host on the show, and for Chase for not taking his own life after having to see what he gets to work with for the next couple days in editing the show. Couldn't do this without you, Chase. And just really grateful for you that the Lord has blessed us so much with your presence. Anyway, hope everybody has a great week. Don't leave your kids in the car. And, if you have any musicians living in the basement, maybe check on them. Make sure everything's copacetic. Hugs, everybody.
See you later.